Now I come to the last position, or the last assumption, and that is a country that wants to have a peaceful program should show its program to be peaceful. Why is it afraid to reveal its program? Why does it have to go to black market in order to acquire its technology? Why was Iran engaged in, to use IAEA terminology, which I don't agree with, but in 18 years of concealment? Let me tell you why I don't agree with the terminology, and then I'll tell you why. 18 years of concealment assumes again that Iran had a legal obligation to disclose, and it concealed. Whereas except for very few reporting obligations which occurred towards the last 2 or 3 years, Iran did not have an obligation to report anything that it did not report. That is based on IAEA regulations that were enforced when Iran started its program. Iran was supposed to declare its facilities 180 days before it introduced uranium into its facilities. So buying centrifuges from whoever we wanted to buy them from, installing them, putting them together, were all legal. And not only legal, we were not supposed to report it. It might have made sense under normal good conditions to have reported it, but we were not obliged to report it. So even this phrase that has been repeated often enough, 18 years of concealment, is in itself an assumption that Iran had, it rests on an assumption that Iran had an obligation to report and it did not. Except for a few reporting failures that Iran introduced uranium into very few of its facilities, leading to a 1.2% purity uranium, and did not report it, which was a reporting failure. But why? It would have made sense. Iran would have removed much of the doubt if it had, in fact, announced its program. Now, under normal circumstances, you should. But Iran risked and continues to risk losing all its sources of acquisition, of procurement, if it made its acquisition public. Iran also risked, in fact, a lot of pressure if it made its acquisitions public. Let me give you an example. And I apologize to the people who were in the workshop for repeating that example. In fact, over the past 20 years, Iran has had to purchase almost anything secretly, anything that has a potential of dual use, secretly and from black market. Each time that we have tried to do it openly and procure it from open sources, without fail, we have failed. We once tried to buy a fermenter for an established vaccine production institution, not an unknown entity, for an established vaccine production institution which has existed in Iran for years, for decades in fact. One of the oldest in the Middle East and one of the best established. Existed long before the revolution, very famous. And we entered into negotiations with a European company. I mean, they entered into negotiations with a European company to purchase it. The European government intervened, saying that this has dual use. It can be used for chemical or biological weapons. And it prevented its sale to Iran. Although Iran is a member of Chemical Weapons Convention and Biological Weapons Convention and has done everything in order to satisfy the requirements of these two conventions. One of the few, by the way, in the region who's a member of the Chemical Weapons Convention. Anyway, we approached that government, now through diplomatic channels, and they said, no, we can't do it. We started a 2-year process of negotiations with that government so that we could agree with them on a specific export control agreement bilaterally with that government, in addition to the multilateral agreement that we had already. Which meant that that particular government could come and visit the location where this equipment was installed, unnoticed, unannounced, so that it would make sure that it was producing vaccines rather than biological weapons. It took us 2 years. It was intrusive. It would undermine our sovereignty. It was a tough pill to swallow, but we did. I had to go through the cabinet, and I got the Iranian cabinet to accept it, and that government also accepted it. So we signed the deal. That government removed its restriction. The company was given a go-ahead to sell the product to Iran. In 2 weeks' time, we received a call from the ambassador of that country saying that we're sorry, that company has decided not to sell. Because they received a phone call from Washington telling them you either do business with Iran or business with the United States. And that was the end of the story. The company was not prepared to risk its relations with the United States in order to do business with Iran.